Yo, what's up, YouTube? This is Talking Crazy 88. Back again with another podcast for you. I'm in a I'm in a undisclosed area of South Carolina. Visiting some friends and family. My cigar of the moment is a AJ Fernandez Brazilian Roll cigar. And I just wanted to talk to y'all, chime in on this beautiful Sunday evening before I head off back home to New York, where I belong. Even though I'm on vacation, or a business vacation, here in South Carolina, just wanted to enjoy myself. Enjoy the last few months of 2025. Hope this year has been a prosperous year for y'all. Yeah, on this beautiful Sunday evening, how's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's doing very well. I'm not going to keep y'all too long, knowing that Sunday night football is going on if y'all still watching professional sports. So I just wanted to chime in on the NBA gambling scandal that hit the headlines earlier this week on Thursday. Now, it came to no shock to me that they were current and ex-players that were involved in this scandal. But what was a surprise to me was that the five crime families of the mafia is back at it again. But this time they're a little bit more sophisticated. I thought they were dead, but I should have known that an organization like that, they don't die, they evolve. Just like any other business, they evolve. So they happen to get their hands stuck in gambling, which has always been their bread and butter to fund their operations. Okay? But this time, they used information, which was very important. I want black men to understand that information is always power. All right? Information, we live in the information age. So information is always going to be power in this life, in society. In this society. The more you know, the richer you're going to become. It has nothing to do, it has very little to do with hard work. It's who you know and what kind of information that you have. Remember that movie, Trading Places? Where the brothers were trying to corner the orange juice market with information that was received, that they obtained to corner the orange juice futures market. Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy's and Jamie Lee Curtis's character was all about trying to obtain that information so they can put them out of business and become wealthy. And this was back in '82, and that was the whole premise of that movie. Y'all need to study that movie and how it relates to real life society. Because let me tell you something, I was not surprised that there was going to be a scandal. I knew it was going to be a scandal coming up with the NBA and with all the professional sports leagues. Because let's just face it, the mafia has their hands. They have their hands in the cookie jar everywhere. But instead of dealing with, Joe Schmo, the humanoids out here, they're going after the rich and wealthy, trying to take from them. Trying to take their money, their resources. Strong-arming professional athletes and referees, officials. All right? You gotta understand, Tim Donaghy, he lost his career over gambling by doing by getting involved with the mob. You know, giving out information, making bad calls, in order to get, in order to bring the point spread down, in order to manipulate the point spread during the game. I need to go ahead and read his book. I got to check it out in the library about his career and his downfall. And there was also another book that I was reading called the Five Families, the history of the rise and fall of the five crime families. All right, written by Selwyn Rao, who was also the author of the book called Justice in the Back Room, which he became a consultant on a TV show called Kojak. Okay, and it was about this case about the career girl killings back in 1963, about 62 years ago. And of course, a brother was involved who went to jail, but it ended up being a Puerto Rican that actually did commit those murders. Now, back to the gambling. Getting back to what I was mentioning about the gambling portion of the NBA, it's going to affect how you see these professional sports leagues. See, I'm not surprised at it, but also I don't feel sorry for the average person that actually put down the $100 on a parlay or on a parlay prop, when knowing that if you know anything about professional sports or you follow your teams, and you have to follow your teams 82 games out of the year. 16, 17 games out of the year. Hockey, 82 games out of the year. 162 games out of the year for Major League Baseball. So when you do player props, you know what's going to happen. You also not only have to watch the players and the coaches, you got to watch the ball boys, you got to watch the referees, you got to watch everybody. But when you put money down, you're gambling. And I don't really feel bad for anybody that's gambling, to use gambling as a means to making money. It's not. It should be viewed as entertainment. That's just my personal opinion. If you can afford to lose, do it. Nobody's stopping you. But if you can't afford to lose, and if you think that $2 player prop is going to turn into $2,000, you got another thing coming. You need your head examined. Sometimes you can hit. You get lucky and hit. See, think about it like this. And I'm gonna put y'all up on the gambling game. All right. And I'm not gonna tell you what these idiots on YouTube telling you how you can make money on certain player props or certain or certain parlays or whatever it is. I'm gonna put you up on game. When you're doing a player prop, you're relying on that. And if you do the over on Lamar Jackson hitting 225 passing yards, you got to rely on what kind of defense. And they playing the Browns, you got to rely on the personnel, on the receivers. Are they able to catch the ball, or if the Cleveland Browns defense has a strong secondary that's shutting them down, or you gotta rely on a player having a receiver having a bad day, and you gotta rely on injuries during the game, because a lot of these players take themselves out of games due to injury. And I say injury in quote unquote, in quotations. Or it could be a coach's decision. They say, motherfucker, you ain't playing. Let me just put Rashad Bateman in here. See what he can do. All right? Sometimes when you do a player prop, they don't show up until the third quarter, until the second half. So, they're not gonna. You're relying on players to play the full game. When in actuality, you got to study how many minutes that there are in the game. But if you do it blindly, you really, really, really are gambling. You're really hoping and praying that that parlay hits. And when it doesn't hit, you're going to lose all your money. And let me tell you something. How much time do you have analyzing a game when you had a full-time job, when you got family, when you have other obligations? Yeah, there's going to be a class action suit. And I predict a lot of these, the leagues, the major leagues, such as the NFL, NBA, NHL, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, they're going to start distancing themselves from these companies like DraftKings or ESPN Bet or Caesars. Because it's going to affect game. It's going to affect the game. Or if it hasn't already affected the game. I mean, I always thought that all professional sports were rigged, and they are rigged. They're just not rigged in your favor. They're never going to be rigged in your favor. If you're lucky enough to be on the other side, ride with it. But there's other forces rigging the sport. You got the NFL actually rigging the sport. You got the leagues rigging the sport. Then you got the mafia. Then you got the media. Well, the media, the league, the media, because television plays a part on what type of ratings, what type of ratings that certain teams will get if they play on prime time, or if they play in the playoffs, or if they get into the playoffs, or even the Super Bowl. That 2018 NFC title game with the Saints and the Rams, the Saints really should have won that game if it wasn't for that damn pass interference call that never happened. Then we got the Rams got in, and we got the sorriest Super Bowl that I ever seen in my entire life. Okay? So these leagues are actually rigged. But the reason why I say I don't feel sorry for the average bettor that actually bet on these games, I mean, you're a degenerate loser. You're actually a loser. If you don't see it the way I see it as entertainment, I mean, I do a $2 bet here, a $3 bet there, but it ain't nothing. Hell, I play with the parlays. I do a 21 leg parlay for $10,000. To bet $1 to win $10,000. You think that's going to happen? No, that's never going to happen. I'm dreaming. I'm on crack if I believe that's going to happen. Because you know what the odds are? The odds are going to be like 20,000 to 1, 10,000 to 1, 20,000 to 1. Imagine putting a $100 bet on that, and hoping and praying that it hits. Okay? You're out of your damn mind. Okay? My lesson for black men: if you like to gamble, that's fine. But if you can afford to lose, do it. Because you're going to lose your money. Okay? You're going to lose your money. I'm talking to the professional gamblers, those professional degenerates. There's going to be a class action lawsuit against these companies, like FanDuel or DraftKings. There's going to be a class action lawsuit. Because of the NBA rigging the game. They got caught by the FBI rigging the game. rigging players, rigging player props. So, getting information that's not widely available to the public. Okay. See, the stock market is highly regulated because, and they tell these companies, do not give out information out, do not give out internal information out to people who are not working for the company. You're bound by that. But people do it. They still do it. They do it and get away with it. See, next week I'm going to talk about your character, who you are as a person, because that tells you who you are as a person. If you immorally obtain information for personal gain, that says a lot about your character. It says a lot about who you are, cheating the system. Do people do it? Yeah. I'm not going to say everybody does it, because not everybody has the ability to cheat the system. But that says a lot about your character. And I told you about that the time 20 years ago when I cashed a check that I wasn't supposed to cash. That said a lot about my character at that time. I wouldn't do that shit again. But I didn't get it. But to be honest with you, I was lucky. I didn't get away with it. I had to pay it back. I had to pay the funds back. But that says a lot about, but see, I learned a very, very, very valuable lesson. You have to protect your character and your reputation. Your character and your reputation is different, but you have to equally protect it at all costs, my friends. And these players that were involved with the mafia, and now they're turning state's evidence against them, federal evidence against them. I wanted to talk about Dr. Umar, but I'm not going to talk too much about that fool. You know what? I'm not even going to say anything about that fool. I'm going to talk about what happened on what Coach Greg Adams talked about on his show about Shannon Sharp. He finally wised up and learned his lesson. Okay? He realized that he's a public figure, and not everybody should have access to him like that. Okay? Whether it's in relationships, whether it's in professional relationships, whether it's in sexual relationships, whatever. Nobody should have that much access and information about you. Okay? He learned it now. He learned whenever shit goes down, he knows who his friends are. Your friends are yucking with you, smiling and patting you on the back and saying, hey, good job, Shannon Sharp, Mr. Sharp, Shannon Sharp, Shannon. I'm proud of you. But as soon as you get into some bullshit, you try to call them, and you're never going to pick up your phone. You become persona non grata. You'll know who your friends and family are at that point. You'll know who your people are. You will know. And there's a moral lesson to his situation, black man, because I know I spoke on it. And maybe I did call him a Bama, a country bumpkin Bama. Maybe I did. But there's a lesson. But I also told you, black men, there's a lesson behind it. You have to protect your reputation, and you have to protect your character. And I'm going to talk about the difference between your reputation and your character. Next week. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this cigar on my balcony, on my relative's balcony. And I'm going to get some sleep because I got to get on the road later on. And hope y'all having a wonderful, wonderful evening. All right, hold on. Let me find out what's going on here. I got a lot of chats here. She's Foxy says hi, hi. Dakota says hi. All right. Vince Ceto Castillo says hi. Jocelyn Kennedy for life says hi. 6-7 equals 13. Again, with this 6-7 thing. All right, we'll talk about that next week. But listen, let me go ahead and get on out of here. This is Talking Crazy 88. And I am out of here. And black folks, let's be careful out there, all right?